It's been the start of a brand new year in tech this week as the annual Consumer Electronics Show virtually opened, revealing the latest state-of-the-art technology that's set to seep into our lives. And no technology can be more embedded in our daily lives than our smartphones. Samsung released its flagship Galaxy S21 phones, unveiled its flagship Galaxy S21 phones on Thursday US time, which was overnight here in Korea. And LG Electronics earlier this week showcased its first ever rollable smartphone. So what new features and trends can we expect at the tip of our fingers this year? We discuss some of these exciting developments we've recently seen with Stephen Fennick, editor of Tech Guide, based in Sydney. We welcome back J.R. Reagan, CEO of Idea Explorer, based in Daejeon. Thank you both so much for joining us this morning. And, well, let's start with you, Stephen. So Samsung, just hours ago, it showcased its very exciting Galaxy S21 lineup. And of course, it showed it to the world just a few hours ago, but you've had it for about 24 hours. Having seen the Galaxy lineup, what do you think are some of its winning features? And are they good enough to compete with the iPhone 12?
Yes, hello, good morning. Yeah, that's right. Samsung, they released the S21. They unveiled it just a few hours ago, was the embargo lifted. And I've actually had it for a little while. So I've got the S21 Ultra in my hand here. This is their flagship. This is the 4-camera system with a 6.8-inch screen. And Samsung, as they do, address the features, the hero features of the device, and then again upgraded each of those features. The camera will take center stage as well, pro level features with the camera. A lot of great features, not only the quality of the camera, but also features on how to use the camera as well. Really cool features like director's view that shoots from 2 cameras at the same time, the front camera, the back camera. There's also the smart take as well, where you can take videos and photos as well at the same time without having to decide to choose between each one. So design-wise, it's also had a nice refresh. And again, I think the important thing to note too is that all of the devices are 5G. You cannot buy a 4G S21. Every one of them are 5G.
Well, I'm really loving the pastel colours of the S21s, and of course the Ultra ones look extra sleek and very tempting as well. So James, what stood out to you about Samsung's latest Galaxy lineup? And well, of course it got rid of its Note line. Do you think that was a good idea?
Yeah, for me, it's not just the outside, but it's on the inside and what it allows the outside to do. It's all about integration. It brings 2 new processors, the Snapdragon in the US and the Exynos outside the US, that bring together higher resolution image processing, 5G, artificial intelligence on a much thinner chip. That means it's faster and able to process these images and video on the new S21 models much better than it could before. And it also gets rid of some of the performance issues that troubled it with the rollout of 5G around the world. And so those things on the inside are going to make the outside so much better. I think for the Note line, I think consumers are used to expecting what's the new version. And while the Note is very loved by its users, the 21 model, the S21, I think it's going to be a good next generation. And I think that moving that along and also integrating its stylus pen to the new line is going to be a good decision.
Right, like you said, a lot of it's seen an upgrade inside the machine as well, and of course the Ultra is going to come with a faster processor, so that's exciting. And well, Stephen, LG also showed off its new phone earlier this week, its rollable phone at CES. What was your reaction to this, and do you think it can really help LG win over more mobile users in a market that is largely dominated by the likes of Samsung, Apple and Huawei?
Yeah, definitely. That was a nice little surprise, a very brief glimpse at the device. It was at the very start of their CES, their press conference at the virtual CES. And LG, I've always been saying, have been quite underrated. Their smartphones are quite good devices, but they just can't compete with Samsung and Apple in terms of getting the market share. So this may be just the silver bullet for them that allows them to jump out of the pack with this kind of technology. It does look like a very attractive phone with the sort of features that we're now starting to see, the whole foldable new design for smartphones. The basis behind that is to try to give you a two-in-one product, a smartphone that can become a tablet when you need it. So depending on the content you're viewing, and this kind of technology, rollable versus a foldable phone, is an interesting take as well. And they're not the only companies to display this sort of technology either. TCL and Oppo have also demonstrated similar technology, the rollable screens, rather than having a folding device where you have to have a hinge, and a lot of engineering has to go into that to make it work properly. So the rollable approach could be a very popular one. And the LG device, while we only had a very brief glimpse, it did look pretty good.
And James, what do you think about this? Do you think the rollable feature will help LG gain more global customers? And what kind of limitations do you think the company has faced in making its smartphones more globally appealing?
Well, I think it's an interesting technology advancement. I think it may be a little bit early. And we'll see how well it works over time. I think for LG, it's only part of the problem that it needs to develop a solution for. The company has said that it's going to be taking a targeted strategy in its marketing and put together different packages for each region. In Korea, for example, it's putting forward a mass premium strategy, so those higher end features for the market. But for other regions like South America and other places, it's going to be just doing more of a mass market strategy, good enough phones for a larger market. I think it needs to tailor its products for each market to get a big bump and compete with Samsung and Apple across the board. I think the new features are going to give it attention, but I'm not sure that is going to be the piece that makes it go forward. I think it's going to be more of a marketing and tailoring approach for each market.
Right, certainly a standout feature. And well, James, here in the South Korean market, well, LG and Samsung, their sort of edge, I suppose, in the market was that they did have the 5G feature, but with the iPhone now having adopted the 5G mobile network technology, do you think that the competition here in Korea is going to be more fierce than before?
Yeah, it's interesting that 7 out of 10 people who bought smartphones in South Korea between July and September of 2020 went home with a Samsung product. It is very Samsung dependent and reliant here in South Korea. It's the first time that any single smartphone has controlled more than 70% of the market in South Korea. So it's pushed aside Apple in return to the top spot in the US as well after 3 years, and it regained dominance over Huawei after losing it for a quarter. I think for Samsung, they're expanding their share in South Korea. I think that's going to continue. I think Apple is also going to remain an important player here, but with the features that it keeps coming out with in its phone lineups, I think it is on par or sometimes even better for what the consumer market needs and wants here in South Korea. So I think the competition will remain stiff, but for the foreseeable future, it's a Samsung market.
And Stephen, we've seen a growing number of 5G phone releases, and of course 5G, the commercial network, it was first made available here in South Korea in 2019, available on Samsung phones, and now the iPhone 12 finally has it. But most people are still using 4G or LTE, and even in Korea, there are still doubts about the speed and connectivity. Do you think 2021 will be the year that 5G finally takes off?
Most definitely. I think the iPhone having 5G for the first time, that was a big deal here in Australia. 5G networks have been rolling out since 2018 in Australia, and all our networks are now expanding their 5G footprints. the fact that Apple is now offering 5G in the eyes of many customers, when Apple does something, it's official. So I think a lot of customers who may not even been aware of 5G are now suddenly interested in what 5G has to offer in terms of speed and capacity. So Apple has really given the networks, the telcos here, a shot in the arm with the release of a 5G device. Of course, Samsung and other companies have been at this for a lot longer. They've had 5Gs for quite a while. But it is going to, for anyone who's invested in a 5G device, certainly here in Australia, the networks are increasing. Telstra just yesterday announced that 1 in 2 Australians now has access to 5G. So that's a really fast rollout for them. We've got the other telcos also catching up as well in terms of their 5G footprints and the speed and capacity they can offer as well. But I think from now on, it's like when you try to buy a TV, you can't not buy a 4K TV. I think later this year, the situation, especially for mid-tier phones and above, you won't not be able to buy a 5G device. I think that's how fast the networks are moving and how quickly they're being accepted into the market.
Oh, so 5G becoming more and more mainstream. And James, how do you think the pandemic has affected the smartphone industry in major markets as we had this COVID-19 health crisis since 2020?
Yeah, after a few years of decline, the smartphone market was expected to grow in 2020. And sure enough, it did in the beginning. But towards the end of the first quarter, that's when COVID hit and started the lockdowns around the world being imposed by lots of different countries, started to hit the supply and demand. And this massive disruption to this supply chain and production schedules caused really tough economic circumstances for many consumers, and they began to put off their purchases of expensive items such as smartphones, and so that hit demand really bad. But these restrictions are starting to ease a bit, and sales are starting to rebound during the latter part of the year. Pent-up demand and the new normal of working from home and education from home. So there's some long-term positivity in the industry, with growth expected to surpass initial estimates of about 3.9%, expected to surpass that. The key takeaway is that the smartphone market is not only resilient, but it can change to the realities of what's going on around the world. So even though it was impacted by the pandemic, 2020 really saw a transition, and that's going to continue through 2021 and beyond, I believe.
Now, Stephen, what key mobile trends are you expecting to see in 2021?
Well, I think we touched on them already. I think the foldable devices, the various iterations of foldable devices, expandable devices, call them what you like. There are more options than just foldable and rollable that we're going to see. Perhaps we'll see a lot more prototypes this year, but also 5G is going to be a bit more readily accepted and available too. It's already available in the major capital cities and major regional centres here as well. I think too that screen size and screen quality is going to be something like things like 120 hertz screens. The S21 actually has that on all their devices, adaptive displays. So we're consuming a lot of content on our devices. So the quality of that experience is something that customers are going to look for. And of course, the camera, that's become the #1 feature that customers look for when they're trying to upgrade their smartphones. They're already very good. There is room for improvement, and companies are going to try to find that extra improvement to attract more customers to their brands. But I think if I had to pick 2 features to look out for, to be more 5G devices and more interesting and ways where companies can give you a smartphone and tablet in the one device, whether it's a foldable or rollable or any kind of screen technology.
Right, so some kind of expansion then. Well, I think 2021 will be the year that I change my phone probably, but well, it looks like there's a lot more options in the market, and that's all very exciting, of course. And well, this is where we'll have to end the discussion today, but that was Stephen Fennick, editor of Tech Guide in Australia, and J.R. Reagan, CEO of Idea Explorer, joining us from Daejeon. Thank you both today so much for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
And to our viewers, as always, thank you for watching.